You got the email yet?
Yeah, I did. I'm joining
Uh,
now.
uh,
There.
cool. Okay, I just posted on my story, so hopefully.
All right. Perfect. Well, hey guys, welcome to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. We were just getting our draft set up here for you guys. Ari, so you know that's Ari. I'm Korea. Today's episode is gonna be a little different. We're still gonna be talking, obviously right now, big sports day. We'll get into all the biggest headlines in a little bit, but we're gonna be mainly doing our fantasy football mock draft. As we talked about, we're getting more and more toward the beginning of the upcoming NFL season. So we're going to be giving out some more fantasy football content for you guys. So right now, if you go to fantasy.football expert, you can join our mock draft. We are just waiting to fill that up so we can get this going and begin this mock draft here. But Ari, first off, July literally right around the corner tomorrow. Today is the first day of free agency. We've seen a lot of craziness so far, but how you doing, man? How you doing?
Yeah, free agency. I think technically, I think it starts at 6 Eastern, so a little under an hour. Um, but we just saw the news a couple minutes ago. Jalen Brunson signing a 4-year deal with the Knicks. So we got Durant requesting a trade. We got UCLA and USC potentially moving conferences. So a lot of crazy sports news today.
I mean, yeah.
And
Well, I
we're
mean,
just getting started.
as we're waiting for this the mock draft lobby to fill up, we might just get right on the way with it. Leading off, we're just going to talk about it. Kevin Durant, he has officially requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets today. Came as a little bit of a shock to most people, but honestly, I've kind of felt that, with the whole Kyrie situation, I feel like Kevin Durant's kind of been, like the bigger question. And I've known, like, behind the scenes that he's definitely potentially has wanted to leave. And so now today he officially requested, but it was kind of crazy that he officially requested this after Kyrie opted back in to playing for Brooklyn. But this is what I talked about, Ari. I said I knew it. I said something's gonna happen. I said something's gonna happen to where Kyrie is not even gonna do it. And then now I'm watching ESPN right now. Even Paolo Banchero's getting in this right now. He posted this on Instagram saying, "Don't sleep," with him next to KD in an Orlando Magic jersey. So everyone's getting in on the fun right now. I mean, we saw I mean, everyone's laughing about it on the NBA free agency special on ESPN right now. But that's kind of how it is right now. You saw, excuse me, all we've heard about 15 plus teams in the NBA. Pretty much over half the league has been contacting the Nets or have been interested in potentially trading for Kevin Durant. Kind of the leaders right now that we've been hearing are the Phoenix Suns and Miami Heat. But the um, Suns with them, Brooklyn would want Devin Booker, and obviously the Suns definitely don't want to be trading Devin Booker away. They drafted him, and they've kind of built the franchise around him right now. So definitely trading him is not what Phoenix wants. And then for Miami, Brooklyn would want to get out of Bio, but due to league sanctions, I think rules, they can't sign and trade for 2 rookie contracts, or I think just around rookie contracts or stuff like that, something like that I saw. So they would have to ship off the third wheel that we keep forgetting to talk about in this, Ben Simmons, because obviously he's still on the Nets and he's just sitting there like, I don't know what to do. So now Ben Simmons may get traded because of this. So Ari, let's just break this down as we're waiting here. Crazy morning. KD wants out. Where do you think he's going to go, and what kind of value do you see the Nets kind of receiving for Kevin Durant now?
Yeah, I mean, we saw on Twitter like Durant's probably maybe the most valuable asset in NBA history, kind of on the block. Uh, Is the train too loud, or is that? Can
Is
you
the
hear
what?
that in the back? Can you hear that in the background of the train, or no? Okay.
You're good.
Okay. Cool. But yeah, I mean, I saw on Bleacher Report, I think it was um, that yeah, it's like Adebayo, the Brooklyn might want if he goes to Miami, or I forget who it was. NC Booker, but I saw like I think it was maybe Aiton or something like that on the Sun. So I don't really see that happening. I think it's going to be just a bunch of picks and a bunch of middle players. We saw Philly also potentially get in the mix, and I saw a potential like Maxi, Tobias Harris, Thibault, and like a bunch of picks. So, and then obviously on Bleacher Report, over half the league is called Brooklyn, which obviously everyone's going to have some level of interest in him. Let's see, we have one, two. Okay, we have two people joined so far, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how this all plays out. And then now, Kyrie opted in, but he could still request a sign and trade still. So you assume he's gonna do that. You would think.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot's still gonna unfold that we haven't even started to see yet.
Yeah, and you mentioned Philly in this, and I was about to say they're the third team, kind of leading the charge. Daryl Morey has been quoted to be he is all in for Kevin Durant right now, so he's definitely a little more aggressive in that trade talks. And you mentioned the names that could be moved: Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, maybe some picks as well, because that would link up KD and Harden back together, and then you have Embiid. That could be very interesting, a very interesting 1-2-3 combo right there. But I mean, we've seen Philly want to trade Tobias Harris to kind of make some room for to potentially have James Harden obviously restructure his contract because he did not opt into his $47 million deal. That's right, people. He did not want to do that because he wanted to restructure his contract so that Philly could get a bigger team around him to build. And I feel like if you bring in KD, I feel like that kind of washes all that away. But at the same time, it's Kevin Durant. He's the best shooter that some of that God's green earth has seen sometimes. That man can shoot the ball. So, but then you mentioned Phoenix Suns and DeAndre Ayton, and I'm seeing a lot of reports saying that Phoenix, I think more Brooklyn is not interested in DeAndre Ayton or a sign and trade for DeAndre Ayton. They're obviously more interested in Devin Booker in a potential trade with excuse me, in a potential trade with the Phoenix Suns. But I think the Nets may have to do some sacrificing here because I honestly think if you build around maybe DeAndre Ayton and one more player, I know ESPN was talking about maybe Cam Johnson. I feel like that could be an interesting build around right there to kind of build the franchise. You have Cam Johnson and DeAndre Ayton, kind of like, the Nets before KD and Kyrie with like D'Lo and, all that young core that they were, having fun with that 6 seed. So, but then you also have Miami in this. Obviously, I've heard Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, a bunch of good names who are good shooters. But the one name the Nets that want to hear is Bam Adebayo, but Brooklyn physically cannot do that because obviously they acquired Ben Simmons on a sign and trade as well. So for now, it's looking like KD may go to the Phoenix Suns. I think that's kind of where the preferred destination is, and I think that's where the Nets want to give him up for or trade him to, because I don't feel as if they're trading for anyone else or any teams are really interested in KD that are realistic contenders to get him. So then you mentioned Kyrie, and now that's the segue to the next point, Kyrie Irving. Because of this KD requesting to be traded from the Nets, now it kind of puts Kyrie in the situation of what did he do, and I'm seeing reports that he's out the door as well. So that was pretty much kind of the expectation. If KD left, Kyrie's gone, and now the Kyrie talks are starting to come back up again of him being traded to LA. He's said on many occasions that he wants to, wear the same jersey as Kobe Bryant. Maybe link back up with LeBron, have that good old story. From Cleveland to LA. Maybe potentially be a really hard contender in the Nets in the West, and then imagine this: you have Durant on the Suns and Kyrie on the Lakers. That Suns Lakers matchup would be amazing TV to watch. So I'm definitely gonna say that. But for now, Ari, we talked about this literally just a few days ago about how Kyrie was probably going to be traded, but then we saw the news that he opted in. But now, with everything going on, he's probably going to be traded. Where do you see Kyrie potentially going?
I mean, the Lakers make the most sense. I mean, the last we heard, the Lakers were the only team that expressed any interest in him, and so it'd be an interesting dynamic reuniting with LeBron, obviously with Kyrie, but it's hard to see any other team show up if not any other team had interest just 2-3 days ago or whatever you want to say it. So the Lakers seem like the most logical choice, and just knowing the franchise and the history of the franchise, like it's hard to see any other team other than the Lakers go after Kyrie at this point.
Yeah, I don't think that any other team is really in the Kyrie Irving market except for the Los Angeles Lakers. Just all the reports coming up have been all about him going to the Lakers, and now we've actually filled up our room for this draft, and now we're going to get things going. So we are starting our first mock draft here. We're going to go probably round by round. Obviously, it's a mock draft, so first two picks right now have been Jonathan Taylor and CMC in that order, 1-2. Kind of expected. Ari, quick thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's going to be most. Obviously, some people have hesitations on McCaffrey after the last couple of years of his injuries, but to me, that's the top two picks, and then Eckler number 3. So yeah, I think that's pretty standard so far.
Yeah, definitely. We'll keep you updated with all this information about KD and Kyrie as all the news comes in. But now we're also going to segue into other breaking news coming out of this morning. This time in the college sports world, UCLA and USC, they are planning on leaving the Pac-12 in the next coming years to join the Big Ten. And this kind of started this chain reaction where other teams in the Pac-12 are thinking of leaving, along with other teams from other conferences making these quote unquote super conferences around the NCAA. So Ari, right after your pick here, we see that it went Derrick Henry, went Cooper Kupp, Austin Eckler, Cooper Kupp, Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and then Dalvin Cook. And then I'm going to go select Najee Harris real quick. But Ari, back to the USC UCLA news. Quick thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly all about the money. I saw tweets that, eventually, sooner rather than later, these Power 5 conferences are going to move away from the NCAA. I think it was a couple years ago, that we saw the alliance was rumored between the Pac-12. I think it was like two other major conferences. I forget.
I believe it was the ACC. It was the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC.
Yeah, that sounds right. So yeah, I mean, the biggest issue is probably going to be travel. For UCLA, both traveling to the other Big Ten schools and then them traveling to California. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like it was inevitable that there's going to be conference realignment, and it sounds like eventually, geography and where these schools are located isn't going to make any difference at all. It's just going to be the best teams, all the top Power 5, schools in like one or two conferences.
Yeah, you mentioned the super conferences. I remember the Super Alliance, whatever that was, between the Pac-12, Big Ten, and ACC. That was supposed to be a collective effort to kind of combat the SEC, where we found out that Oklahoma and Texas were joining the SEC back in 2021. So it's kind of crazy to think that literally a year ago we were just thinking, okay, it's just gonna be Oklahoma and Texas moving, and then a little bit of realignment and throughout college football and just college sports in general. But now it's expanded to pretty much where everything is getting realigned, and there's going to be a bunch of realignment everywhere for the upcoming season. Right now, the biggest stories obviously are USC and UCLA. You mentioned, travel. That's going to be definitely something that's going to be on the minds of pretty much all USC and UCLA fans, along with the Big Ten, because you potentially have, even like for college football, you have snow games, and UCLA and USC, they're in LA. I don't think LA gets that much snow per year, Ari. So that definitely will be a huge factor for this team, for both schools, if they travel to like Ohio State in like early November, or they got to go to Michigan, or they got to go somewhere somewhere in the Midwest where it gets cold in early November, or around that time where it's nearing the end of the regular season, and then it just set off this chain reaction. You mentioned, I've heard teams potentially like Duke and UNC moving to the Big Ten. I've heard the Big Ten making this a 20-team league, 20-team conference with different teams in different divisions and all this nonsense. But the main story right now is pretty much the Pac-12 is kind of being blown up, essentially. First off, you have UCLA and SC kind of being the catalyst. Those two schools now going to the Big Ten. There's also been rumors that Arizona, ASU, Colorado, and Utah may move to the Big 12. I've also heard that potentially Washington, along with Oregon, Cal, and Stanford, may move somewhere potentially in the Big Ten. I heard for Stanford and Oregon and Washington. And then, that just kind of leaves, unfortunately, Wazoo and then OSU in this weird position. I think it's ridiculous. It's honestly a lose-lose situation right now for WSU, because we're in this position where we just don't have, the resources that, like a Washington or an Oregon has to go make that leap to, to still be in like the Power 5 conferences or whatever this conference is, the super conference now. And so potentially that may mean either we stay in whatever this Pacific Conference may end up being, or we have to go down to the Mountain West and move into there. So it's definitely a developing story right now. But from what I've seen, definitely a lot of realignment. And you mentioned it. This is all about the money. I feel like this is just for branding, and because obviously Fox owns the Big Ten and the SEC, and now because those are like the bigger conferences in college football and pretty much just college in general, those are going to be the conferences that are going to be attracting a lot of attention for the upcoming season, depending on how long this, depending on when all of this goes down. But yeah, it's crazy news. It's a sad day for just people who love the pure college football aspect. The different conferences, the different the competition. Excuse me. The different routes for teams to get into like the college, and I think all of this realignment now has been a catalyst from the college football playoff, and I feel like the college football playoff has ruined just college sports in general, and that's a shame to say, but when you look at the timeline, college sports, ever since the college football playoff was introduced, it became this thing that, you have to be in the bigger conferences to play better teams, and then you have to play better competition, which means you have a better resume. It's all about the resume, and I feel like that has been just the catalyst as to why all of this has happened in in college in just college sports in general. But it's a shame. But yeah, college sports have definitely gone in the wrong direction now. But we're gonna catch up with this draft now. We have entered round 3. Ari's on the clock. We're gonna give a little synopsis of each team as we get out of our picks here. So
Yeah, and we'll go over all the teams like at the very end as well. So
yeah, we definitely will.
who are you thinking with this pick? Who are you looking at?
Well, I was going to be looking wide receiver, obviously, but obviously it's very, very obviously the wide receivers that all of them that I've been targeting have obviously all been selected right now, and I'm definitely looking toward more best player available because I have a pick literally right after this, and right now I'm seeing pretty much just one of the best quarterbacks. I feel like this man is going to take his game to the next level next year and be that Super Bowl winning quarterback. I feel like it's a risk, but I really like Josh Allen next year. I just like his upside in terms of what he brings at an offense. He is that center of the offense, and I feel like Stephon Diggs has definitely taken that step up to a top 5 wide receiver. And I feel like in this kind of setting where the Bills definitely rely on their pass game and Josh Allen to pretty much be their guy. I feel like Josh, if you want to take a risk on taking a quarterback high in your drafts, I feel like Josh Allen is definitely a guy that you would definitely risk taking.
Yeah, no, I think he's by far the number one, fantasy quarterback. And we saw him get that much. We saw him get super close to Super Bowl last year. And so it seems like the year, that the Bills with the, they brought in Von Miller this offseason with all the offseason additions plus, bringing back the same core as last year. They definitely seem like one of the top Super Bowl favorites. Josh Allen's one of the top MVP candidates. And yeah, I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with Allen as your quarterback. So we're just kind
Yeah.
of looking through the first 3 rounds. So we saw Kelsey go late round 1, Mark Andrews late round 2. I think Kyle Pitts, was an auto pick there early round 3, and then Kittle late round 3 at at tight end. First round seems pretty straightforward. I mean, I think you'll see in some mocks, running backs like Cook, Harris, and Mixon go a little bit early, a few picks earlier. But you can argue that, receivers like Jefferson and Chase are safer, not carrying the same, injury risk and all that. So I don't think you can go wrong with any of those guys in that range.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, those are pretty much arguably in terms of fantasy. We saw those 3 pretty much lead the charge, pretty much be like the top 3 receivers in this current in fantasy football last year. So if you're looking for safety right there, Jamar Chase definitely going to be a top receiver. We saw his connection with Joe Burrow last year. Justin Jefferson, he's definitely ascended his game up to be that number 1 receiver for Minnesota. And I feel like now that they've introduced that kind of play action offense that was for the Rams, I feel like now that can open the door for Justin Jefferson to have a Cooper Kupp kind of season. And then the Cooper Kupp right there, speaking of Cooper Kupp number 4, definitely just the top one of the top pretty much the top receiver after his amazing performance last year in the NFL. And right now I took Scary Terry. I needed a receiver, and I definitely think that Terry McLaurin is definitely a great receiver. I feel like people underestimate him for what he does for that Washington team. Obviously, with all the quarterbacks he's played with, I feel like he's definitely kind of more like a. Now, I'm not going to compare him to DeAndre Hopkins yet, but in terms of just the similar paths that they played, obviously Terry McLaurin, definitely the number 1 star wide receiver on that team. Definitely just signed a decent extension for him. Good for him. And I feel like now that he actually has a quarterback who can throw the ball somewhat better than the quarterbacks he's had, I feel like this definitely can be an upside season for Terry McLaurin. Now with Carson Wentz as his quarterback this year.
Yeah, I mean, the talent's undeniable. It just comes down to if, Wentz can get him the ball consistently. You can argue that this is his best quarterback situation in his career. Not that that's, saying too much with what he's had, but he's done everything he can with what he's had, and he definitely deserved that extension. I think it was 3 year, I believe, the other day. We both, didn't take it in the first 3 rounds. I took Michael Pittman here. I'm not super confident in him as a wide receiver 1, but I think he'll be relatively safe. As the clear wide receiver 1, I think the Colts are still going to be, a run heavy offense led by Jonathan Taylor, but I think there's going to be enough to go around for Pittman to be, I would say, a borderline. I mean, I would probably say closer to a high end wide receiver 2 than like a low end wide receiver 1. But I think just given my running back trio, I think that would be enough to overcome, a slight downgrade at wide receiver 1 on my team. So 4th round so far, we see Breece Hall, J.K. Dobbins, Josh Jacobs, Terry McLaurin, Pittman, Travis Etienne, who I like a lot, Jerry Jeudy, D.K. Metcalf, Gibson, Justin Herbert as the second quarterback off the board late round 4. What's your thoughts this year on Sutton versus Jeudy? Obviously, they both get a huge quarterback upgrade in Russell Wilson, and the question just becomes down to who's going to be the wide receiver 1. So who are you leaning towards?
Right now, I would definitely lean toward Jerry Jeudy. In my opinion, I feel like he has kind of more of the upside. I feel like Courtland Sutton's receptions are going to be really limited. I think it's definitely going to be a similar situation to how Russ was in Seattle with a DK Tyler Lockett, 1-2 power combo. But honestly, I feel like it's going to be week to week because I feel like that offense is so similar to what Russell Wilson just left in Seattle, where we had times where DK would have great weeks and then he would have like a dud week and Tyler Lockett would go off for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I feel like that definitely is going to be pretty prevalent this year. I feel like Russ could, have Jerry Jeudy go for like 203 touchdowns, and then the next week it could be Courtland Sutton, and then the next week it could be Tim Patrick. So I feel like out of the two, I would lean toward Jerry Jeudy, but the fact that Russ's offensive scheme is just and just how this offense looks compares to what he just left in Seattle, I feel like it's pretty obvious to say that it's not going to be locked to have Jerry Jeudy be the established number 1, or vice versa for Courtland Sutton to be the established number 1. I think they're going to be both fighting for it. But 1 week it'll be Courtland Sutton having a great week. The next it'll be Jerry Jeudy.
No, yeah, I'm definitely more in agreement with you. I lean. I lean Sutton myself slightly. I think it's arguable
for this pick, Ari.
And I agree that there's going to be weeks where they each, have their bigger weeks or whatever you want to call it. And I agree. Yeah, they re-signed Tim Patrick as well this offseason, so he's going to have his role. We saw him show flashes last year, and especially on the deep ball. And, that's Russell Wilson's specialty. So I think, we'll definitely see big weeks for Patrick. Eileen Sutton, I think he's just my biggest concern for Jerry Jeudy is just that he's kind of been on and off the field this offseason between some legal issues and some injuries. Obviously, it's still early. We haven't even hit training camp, so there's still a lot of time. So hopefully Jeudy would be fully healthy and ready to go all throughout training camp. But Eileen Sutton slightly, on the outside. But I agree that it's going to be a situation where they're both going to be solid at the end of the day. And, they're both going to have their weeks. And then we'll also see Tim Patrick, have his weeks where he'll maybe catch, he'll catch 3 passes for 90 yards on a touchdown where he catches, a 60-yard touchdown from Russell Wilson. So definitely an offense that's going to be a lot different than what we've seen the past couple of years with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I definitely see why you go Courtland Sutton because Jerry Jeudy's off the field issues have been pretty prevalent, pretty much just throughout the media. I mean, remember he had to go to I think it was the juvenile detention that was literally right next to the Broncos training camp. So he could literally just see it happening right before his eyes. And I feel like the upside wise, I definitely would say Jerry Jeudy, but in terms of just production, on the field, you can obviously say that Cortland Sutton is, more of the favorite in that aspect this year as well. But right now we're getting toward near the top of the hour, and at 3 o'clock that is when free agency will officially open. And obviously, the only news that we've only received right now is that Brunson is intending to sign a 4-year, $110 million deal with the New York Knicks. After coming out that you know, even the Mavs didn't even offer him. And I feel like that is something that is pretty prevalent, that the Mavs just didn't even want to, potentially bring him back and, just want to move on and maybe find someone else to pair Luka up with, or bring Spencer Dinwiddie off the bench. But so Jalen Brunson now, he's going to be a New York Knick. Uh, what do you expect from that, Ari? Do you see any production from him? Do you think he can be one of the bigger talents coming into Madison Square Garden for the first time in a while, or do you think it's just a little bit of an overpay situation?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of an overpay situation, but with the market and the NBA and all the money, like every offseason, like we said last episode, there's going to be players who get their bag, and good for them. My biggest concern is just kind of how the spacing is going to work with the Knicks. With RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, not the greatest shooters on the outside. We saw Brunson last year in Dallas. He had shooters on the outside that he would drive and dish to, and you don't really have that, in New York. Consistent 3-point shooters outside of, maybe Evan Fournier. But I mean, I've heard that the Knicks aren't done and might make another move. So we'll see if they bring in another shooter on the outside that could kind of help offset this move, because yeah, I think right now there's kind of two. RJ Barrett, we saw him last year a little bit improve his shot from the outside. Randall is just super inconsistent. So I think they see another consistent shooter on the outside. I'm not sure off the top of my head who they could potentially go after, but I've heard that they might not be done with just this move. So we'll see at the top of the hour, as you said, when I don't know. I think it's just is it like when you can officially sign at the top of the hour, or is it just you can start to like negotiate? Because I think there's might be a different date.
No, I think at 3 o'clock that's when you can sign.
Okay, got it.
Also, breaking news, Ari, Ty France is officially an All-Star. Ty France has finished in top 2 for AL first baseman voting. He's advancing to the voting finals. Obviously, he's going to be competing with Vladimir Guerrero, but Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Sorry, but Ty France officially a first base, officially going to Hollywood, going down to LA to represent the Seattle Mariners. Obviously, I think he's been one of the best first basemen this year in the American League. Putting up those great offensive numbers. He's been injured as of recently, but rumors are saying that he's definitely going to be coming back or trying to come back as soon as he can. If that's before the All-Star break or not, we'll see. But hopefully he can make it back so he can compete in the All-Star game, because I'd love to see Ty France, in his first All-Star game, be able to compete. Ari, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, yeah, well deserved. I think even people who aren't Mariners fans, I think most, if you're a baseball fan, know the name, Ty France by now. Wait one sec.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you.
We'll be going over all the teams at the end. I think it just makes more sense doing it that way. So yeah, we'll go over all the teams at the end. But yeah, with France, he's really literally the core of the Mariners offense. You can see with him out of the lineup, how different they are in like every single category. And so yeah, well deserved without a doubt.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Ty France, in just some of the offensive stats that he's produced this year, I feel like it's definitely been prevalent that he has definitely been deserving and worthy of an all-star spot this year. And especially, no one really expected, Ty France to blossom like this. So it's definitely a great story to see Ty France, kind of step up his game and, just be that Excuse me, and be that all-star first baseman in his first season. So I definitely think it's well deserved. Hopefully, he can come back before the All-Star break, and hopefully he can make it there. But all right, I want to talk real quick about this past series with the Orioles. Yesterday, Mariners won 9-3. Offensive, great game for the Mariners. This is what the Mariners have been looking for offensively. Coming out of the series, obviously against the Angels, where some suspensions were just given out to almost everybody. Winker 7 games, J.P. Crawford 5, Julio has 2, and I think the rest are just all Los Angeles Angels, if I'm not mistaken. But excuse me. All right, so right now, come out of a series against Baltimore. You take 2 out of 3. You have a 4-game series with Oakland before you welcome San Diego in, and before you go to San Diego and then welcome Toronto in, and then you go to Washington and Texas before the All-Star break. And obviously the Mariners have been allowed to kind of stagger these suspensions. So Ari, if you are the Mariners, do you stagger them this series to kind of give you some leeway in the San Diego series? Because obviously today, first a 4-game series against the Oakland A's. If you're a GM right now, if you're Scott Service, do you suspend or do you take JP and along with Julio and Jesse Winker out of the lineup this weekend to save him for next weekend? What would you do in this situation?
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier. I mean, I feel like if we would have heard by now if they were going to start them this series. I mean, I personally would probably start them this series, just because I think that they can beat Oakland without, maybe 1 or 2 of those 3. I mean, I kind of hope that the MLB is going to rescind Julio's 2-game suspension, just because they never gave a reason what he did, and so I feel like he didn't deserve that 2-game suspension. But I feel like just knowing the MLB, we would have heard by now if they were going to rescind it. So, one second.
Yeah, I know it got sent in that he want that Julio. I know all 3 have tried to appeal for their suspensions. I haven't had any word on whether or not the suspensions have been lifted. But speaking of let's see the lineups. The Mariners lineup has just dropped as of 2 minutes ago, and I'm seeing both Julio and Jesse Winker in the lineup. No J.P. Crawford, so that means J.P. not in the lineup. So this could be one of the games that he's serving. But Julio is number 1 in this lineup, and Jesse Winker is 2, followed by Eugenio Suarez, Carlos Santana, Abraham Toro, Kyle Rawley, Adam Frazier, Dylan Moore, and Sam Haggerty with Logan.
Wait, so you said JP's out of the lineup today?
Yeah, he's not in. Dylan Moore is playing shortstop today. So maybe
this probably will be the start of his suspension. You would think, because I think he is 5 games, right? So that would be these 4, and then the first against San Diego. So
so it kind of I was about to say it looks like JP will be starting his 5-game suspension, today. But for Julio, his 2-game suspension, not starting. Maybe he'll start later. Then for Winker's 7, he's still in the lineup. Obviously, now a Seattle fan favorite after the brawl with Los Angeles. So first reactions are, do you think Jesse Winker should be out of the lineup today? And what about the same for Julio?
I mean, I think Julio, since it's only 2 games, you could just do it maybe the 3rd and 4th game of the series. I was thinking, and then Winker's a little bit tougher because 7 games, and so it's multiple series. But I mean, I would probably start it this series, but you said he's in the lineup, right? So it's obviously not going to start today. But maybe they have hope that they're going to drop the suspension to maybe 4 or 5 games. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. For now, I'm hoping that the Mariners will not have to have Julio suspended. And then for Jesse Winker, I hope his suspension is at least reduced but I think that's a very small chance of that happening, considering how pretty much just the brawl uh, came out and just how brutal it really was. But now we're getting toward the end of this draft. We're in the 8th round now, so these are pretty much just maybe some hidden gems down here. Ari, if you had any hidden gems late in this, now we're in the 8th round, getting toward the 9th. Do you have any hidden gems that you can see right now on this draft board?
Yeah, I was looking a little bit down. Isaiah Spiller, someone I kind of like as the likely, we've seen the Chargers the last few years try to find a number 2 back behind Eckler. And I think they might have that in Isaiah Spiller. He's definitely going to have the opportunity to take over that role. And so potentially the golden role in that, one of the best offenses in the league. And then if Eckler was ever miss time filling into that lead role, he could be an immediate RB1. So Spiller's someone I was looking at. At wide receiver, I mean, we know it's a deep position. You got Lazard, potentially the wide receiver 1 in Green Bay this year. Gage could have a big role early in the year with Chris Godwin likely missing the early part of the season. And then obviously you have Antonio Brown and Gronkowski both gone. So a lot of targets opening up in that offense. I think even Tim Patrick could be worth the flyer late. I made this mock only 4 bench spots. Usually you have 6 or 7 bench spots, so this isn't going to be as deep as you normally go. But yeah, Patrick is someone you could look at in a deeper league or a deeper mock draft. Yeah, those are a few names that stand out to me. And here, since I took Dalvin Cook early, I'm going to take Madison here as his handcuff. As you're on the clock now, Korea.
Yeah, now I'm getting late into this draft too, and I'm seeing some hidden gems as well. But I'm gonna go running back here, and I'm gonna go with the guy you were just hyping up, Ari. I like him too, potentially in deeper leagues. I like Isaiah Spiller. I think you mentioned if Austin Eckler goes down, I feel like he could definitely have breakout potential right there. But yeah, we are getting now to the end of this draft. We're almost just a couple rounds away. And stick around. We're going to be giving our pretty much full breakdown of each team as the draft concludes here. This is our first mock draft once again. For people who do not know, we're going to be doing these a lot more often as we get closer and closer to the beginning of the NFL season. And right now, we're just kind of waiting to the top of the hour potentially because that is the official open of the NBA free agency period. And obviously, right now, the lead story is that Kevin Durant wants to be he wants to be traded out of Brooklyn, and alongside that with Kyrie, obviously he wants to be traded out as well, but they also got to find all these suitors who want him and all that stuff. And then in terms of just signing, the only story we have right now is that Jalen Brunson has officially, intends to sign a 4-year, $110 million contract with the New York Knicks. Obviously, the Knicks made all that cap space to acquire him. Obviously, trading away Kemba Walker to trade that contract away before the Pistons intend to buy his contract out, along with trading their picks along with trading their first round pick in this year's draft, along with Jalen Durant, who they traded from Charlotte and then they also traded away Alec Burks and
Nerlens Noel.
Oh yeah, Nerlens Noel to the Pistons to free up some cap space as well. So the Knicks made all these moves to acquire Jalen Brunson, and then we talked about it earlier, but I'm going to mention it again. I think this could potentially be an overpay as well. You mentioned Jalen Brunson, and you saw his pretty decent stats when he was, when he was back in Dallas. Excuse
the
me.
number 2 option in Dallas. Yeah,
Exactly. He was kind of defaulted as the number 2 option for the sole reason that the number 1 option was Luka Doncic, and it's Luka. So I feel like after you just kind of go from number 1, you got to go number 2. So I feel as if Jalen Brunson was kind of put in that role, and so I don't think he really ascended yet. So I think this could definitely be an overrate. But at the same time, you mentioned this is a shooter's market right now, and if you want to get a really good shooter, you definitely got to pay a lot of money and kind of go all out here. So I feel like Jalen Brunson may have gotten overpaid, but maybe that's due to the not inflation, but just the inflated market that is excuse me, that is the NBA right now. Yeah, excuse me, sorry, I couldn't think of the word. But one more show I want to talk about right now, Miles Bridges. This guy, I'm so done with this guy. So obviously, if you haven't heard, Miles Bridges this morning, he according to TMZ, he was
arrested.
It
was last night, right?
Or no, the news came out this morning, but last night, Miles Bridges, he was arrested on felony domestic violence charges. That's all we know right now. No word on anything else right now. As Ari looks it up right now. But, look, we've given this man so many different chances. First, it was the picture on Instagram with the rolled up marijuana stick, let's call it that, for the PG people. He rolled one up, and then he had some purple substance in a styrofoam cup. For some people who don't know what that is, it's something that is not mean, but rhymes with mean, starts with an L. That's what it is. And he posted that to his main Instagram story. And then we see this come out after, and if this is true, this is definitely going to be a really, really bad look for someone who wants the money, because definitely Miles Bridges had some great stats last season, and after his season in Charlotte, he wants to get his money, and Charlotte was not interested in giving him his money, obviously due to what's been going on off the court right now. And Miles Bridges took to say that if Charlotte doesn't give me my money, he's going to go to Detroit. Someone from his rap group said that. So, but now it's looking like he may have been not going anywhere except the Los Angeles or whatever the state penitentiary he's in after this came out this morning. Ari, what are your thoughts right now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's still early. The news just broke, I think, late last night. I believe he's a restricted free agent, I believe. Or is it unrestricted? I'm not 100% sure.
I think he's an unrestricted.
So, yeah, so obviously we'll see how this impacts, if at all, his free agent market. I know Charlotte was looking to bring him back. I saw some other rumors. He could be headed elsewhere. So I think it's, a little bit too early to make anything, make any thoughts on this official. But it's kind of weird timing, on the eve, basically, of free agency starting for something like this to happen. So hopefully everything clears up soon.
Yeah, we'll get more information as that comes in. But Ari, I want to talk to you real quick about something that I just saw. Brian Windhurst just said this, and the Bleacher Report just put this out. Right now, it looks like there may be a potential KD and Kyrie package trade, and the destination in mind, the Lakers. Yes, I'm seeing that right now. It says the Lakers are potentially a destination for both KD and Kyrie if a trade was to happen for a package duo with the two. Ari, if this was to happen, what do you think? Do you think the Lakers could potentially pull this off?
I mean, I think it's all BS right now. I saw that on Bleacher Report, but Bleacher Report, at least from what I've seen, posts a lot of kind of what seemed to be more like clickbait kind of headlines. So I'm not putting anything into this right now. I mean, obviously we've seen that you can't completely rule anything out like 100%, but I don't really put too much thought into it as of now. yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. But also, we also have some breaking news coming from Lowe's right now from 5 minutes ago. Jaren Jackson, the Memphis forward, he has undergone surgery to repair a stress fracture in his right foot right now. And he's expected to be sidelined 4 to 6 months. So that's a big loss for Memphis right there, as you build up right on your screen.
So
And then
that's into the season, right? Into next
yeah,
season.
that's definitely going to be. That's 4 to 6 months. So that's 4 to 4 months
Yeah,
right now. That's the beginning of the season. That's October.
yeah, yeah.
So he's out till at least the end of the year, the calendar year. So now it's looking like Jaren Jackson is not going to make his return to the NBA next season until 2023. Ari, quick thoughts before we get into this recap of the draft.
Yeah, it definitely sucks. We saw him kind of start to step up at times, last year, but injuries have kind of been a hindrance for him throughout his career. So maybe this will help. Maybe he was playing through an injury that this will help kind of clear up. I want to say, but yeah, hopefully he doesn't suffer any setbacks. That's already like halfway into next season. They're close to that.
Yeah, but now we're going to take a look at each team as the draft has finished. We're going to go with this first team here. This is at C Volker. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. You can flame me in the comments. But so his draft, he first went with Jonathan Taylor, and then went Mike Evans after that, James Conner in the third, then Allen Robinson in the fourth, Patrick Mahomes in the fifth, then Adam Thielen, Zach Ertz, Devontae Smith, James Cook out of Buffalo, Christian Watson, and then Ramondre Stevenson to round out that team. Ari, what are your first impressions on this team right here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first three picks I like a lot. I know some will say that's too early for James Conner, but I mean, we saw him finish top 5 last year. The departure of Chase Edmonds should open up more opportunity, even if you want to call, touchdown regression for him. I think the touches you should see, with Edmonds gone, should make up for that regression that he could see in the touchdown department. It just all comes down to him staying healthy. So I think he's worth the risk at that turn. Obviously, the part of the biggest at the turn, you're not going to get certain guys because of the long wait. So you kind of are forced to reach on players that you might like. I don't think it's too much for a reach. I think I value Connor kind of close to the mid round 3, and obviously his next pick isn't going to be till 412. So you kind of have to take him if you want him. So I like it. I like A-Rob to bounce back at the end of round 4. I probably would have kept waiting at quarterback personally, but I think Mahomes is fine value in round 5. I like Ertz in round 7. I kind of prefer him in rounds 8 to 9, but again, he wasn't going to pick again for another 24 picks till 8-12, and so he wasn't going to fall. Ertz probably wasn't going to fall that far, and so if you want to secure your guy, I don't hate it. You got the back-to-back rookies with James Cook, Christian Watson, and not in 10th round. So I think it's overall pretty safe, pretty solid. But what's your thoughts, Korea?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Right now, I definitely feel this is a definitely safe team right now. I like that running back duo and Jonathan Taylor and James Conner. I feel like James Conner, a lot of people have not really given him the kind of credit that he's due. He was a top 5 running back last year in terms of touchdowns. His goal line dependency was absolutely through the roof. And I feel like the upside this season is definitely going to be prevalent because you think James Conner was the whole entire offense at the time DeAndre Hopkins was out with an injury last year. And now we know DeAndre Hopkins is out for the first, I believe, 6 games of the regular season due to suspension. And I feel like, if you want to get someone who's going to have immediate just success, I feel like James Conner is that guy. We saw he's definitely kind of more, he's definitely a receiving back as well, but in first and goal situations, they gave the ball to James Conner a lot, and that was even when they still had Chase Edmonds, and now Chase Edmonds is down in Miami. So I definitely love James Conner's upside this season, but I feel like it is a little limited just because when DeAndre Hopkins come back, obviously Kyle Murray and DeAndre Hopkins have a great connection. I feel like that could limit his potential receiving, obviously. receiving yards per game and his stats there. But in terms of just on the ground, I feel like James Conner is definitely going to be one of the best running backs just in terms of goal line dependency. And then you have, Jonathan Taylor, the best running back last year. You talked about how the Colts are definitely a running back leaning offense, and that's very prevalent. They still have 30-something-year-old Matt Ryan now, so not someone who's mobile. Definitely, and one of the best offensive lines. The Colts definitely protect well, so I definitely think that this is the smart move right now. Jonathan Taylor. I like this team. You mentioned a very decent bench right now in terms of receivers. You have Christian Watson, who could definitely be a star, the rookie out of North Dakota State, now being drafted, going to the Packers. And now since Devontae Adams has been traded, now it kind of leaves the open area to kind of fight for who's going to be that number one. People can say, obviously, argue that it could be Lazard, but then you never know what Christian Watson can bring to the table. So I definitely think that this team is a little more well-rounded. I like that 1-2 combo in the running back to start the running back discussion right there. But we're going to move on to the next team here. This team is Johnny B99. We're going to go through his team right now. So first he went with Austin Eckler in the first round. Then he went with Deebo Samuel, Kyle Pitts. Then he's led to Justin Herbert, Jalen Waddle, Damian Harris, Rashad Bateman, Robert Woods, Dameon Pierce, Tyler Algier, and then Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Ari, what are your first impressions on this team right here?
Yeah, I like the first two selections and Eckler and Deebo. Kyle Pitts, I get the appeal if you want to go tight end early. I'm personally someone who will probably be waiting on tight end in most of my leagues, but I get the argument of wanting to secure that tight end. I think that this might have been auto pick if I remember correctly, but maybe not. Herbert 410, like I said, Mahomes at 5.01. I'm personally gonna keep waiting, but again, it's like the tight end. Like I get the appeal of Herbert. I personally don't think that you should take both early. I think you can take one position early between quarterback and tight end. But I think both is a little bit too much. So then you got Waddle as your wide receiver 2, which is fine in PPR. Damian Harris as your RB2 in PPR isn't as ideal, but that's going to happen when you take both quarterback and tight end early. I like the Bateman pick. Robert Woods at the end of the 8th round is fine. I personally don't see too much upside in him coming off an ACL tear in a run-first offense in Tennessee. Back-to-back rookie running backs and Dameon Pierce and Tyler Algier, and then MVS at the end. So I don't love this team personally. I like the first 2 picks. I like Waddle around 5, Bateman around 7. So there's like some pieces I like, but overall I'm not super high on this team. But I get the appeal of going quarterback and tight end early and wanting to secure those positions. I feel like if you're gonna secure one, I don't think you should secure both early.
Yeah, I agree. Ari, sorry, I've been seeing all this breaking news right now.
Yeah, I see all this stuff.
Let's just get right into it. First off, we're going to talk about this 2-time MVP. Nikola Jokic signed a 5-year, $264 million Supermax deal with the Denver Nuggets. Richest deal in NBA history. That's crazy. But then again, we've seen how really crucial Nikola Jokic is for this team. Ari, quick thoughts on that deal.
Yeah, well deserved. You mentioned multi MVP, so I think we've been talking about since their season ended, there's been talk about him getting the Supermax, and so well deserved. That's all.
And then next thing I just want to talk about Devin Booker. He gets a big deal, big extension right there. I believe let me find it again. It is a 4-year, $214 million Supermax contract that he is set to sign as soon as next week with the Suns. So that kind of and then also, according to sources, Booker's going to be the cover of the NBA 2K23. So shout out to Devin Booker right there. But right now, obviously with the KD Kyrie situation, Devin Booker was kind of a name being floated as a name who could be traded. Phoenix does not want to trade him. They're locking him in. Ari, quick thoughts.
Yeah, again, like Jokic, well deserved. Not a surprise. We're seeing all these stars get these Supermax deals. So now the next step will be to see if they can pull off a deal for Durant. We've seen, a lot of regular season success in this team between Booker and Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson in that core. And obviously getting a guy like Durant could push him over the top. But yeah, nothing more to say other than, well deserved. And then here, we'll just go in order on here that I have on the screen. So we got Monk going to the Kings, which I saw rumors of, I think, this afternoon. They kind of got an interesting core right now with Fox, Sabonis, I believe, right? So that's who they traded for in the Halliburton trade.
Yes.
And then you got Davion Mitchell, and then they drafted Keegan Murray. So a pretty interesting kind of core with adding Monk as a shooter on the outside. He took the veteran minimum deal with the Lakers last year, so I assume he's getting a bigger deal this year with the Kings. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, also another big one, Bradley Beal. He's been reported that he has agreed to a 5-year, $251 million max contract to stay in Washington. We already talked about how he's potentially coming back. Ari, do you think this man's ever going to want to win, or does he get in his bag this time? What do you think about this?
We talked about last episode that, you can either choose winning or, generational wealth and all the money. Hard to see Washington being a winning team anytime soon, but good for Beal for getting his money. I'm kind of surprised that he did return, but there were rumors after he opted out that he would still return. I thought them getting Johnny Davis was kind of the sign that Beal was going to be leaving Washington. But yeah, definitely deserves the money. I don't really know for Washington's purposes if it's going to work out for winning purposes, but clearly they want to keep their one star core player around, and they were able to do that.
Yeah, and then right there, right above it, breaking out of Portland. Portland is intending to sign Anthony Simons to a 4-year, $100 million contract extension. Obviously, he took his game up to the next level right there. Portland really likes to keep him as one of the key pieces in that kind of not rebuild, but kind of restructure around Damian Lillard. Right now, Ari, quick thoughts on Anthony Simons?
Yeah, we saw him step up big time last year when Lillard was hurt. And so now with Lillard coming back, that should be, we saw McCollum get traded. So Simon just basically takes over McCollum's role alongside Lillard in that backcourt. He is a restricted free agent, so I thought there's a chance that he might leave, but clearly Portland wanted to keep him, and I don't think he was going to get a $400 million deal from anyone else. So yeah.
And in the top right there, not Bradley, Bobby Portis. He gets his back. Obviously, the Bucks declined his option to restructure his contract, and he gets his bag. He gets 4 years, $49 million to stay in Milwaukee, and there's a player option in year 4 for him. Bobby Portis is kind of a big spark for this Milwaukee team. He was a part of that championship team back in 2021. What are your thoughts on him re-signing?
Yeah, again, well deserved. He's been a part of this Bucks core the last few years that we've seen be, the top of the East or make deep runs in the playoffs. I think just his defensive energy, his corner shooting, he just brings a lot of different, he's like one of those players where he's not great at anything, but he's super solid at a bunch of things. And, he definitely has that chemistry with with Giannis, Middleton, Drew Holiday, and, all that Bucks core. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good deal for both sides.
Yeah, definitely. Also, we found out PJ Tucker. He is heading up to not Phoenix, Philadelphia. He is signing a 3-year, $33.2 million fully guaranteed deal with the Philadelphia 76ers. Going back up to Philly. Ari, what are your thoughts on PJ Tucker returning to Philly, kind of now rejoining with now James Harden as well?
Yeah, we talked about this possibility. I want to say a couple weeks ago. I think just his defensive tenacity, corner shooting. I think all of his just kind of his play style fits Philly. Obviously, I mean, 33 million. That's what, like 11 million per year. So that's not too bad with this market. So yeah, I think it's a good deal for both sides. I also wanted to bring up Hartenstein signing a 2-year deal with the Knicks. That could potentially mean that Mitchell Robinson's potentially going to be headed elsewhere in free agency. They got Jericho Sims, who they drafted, I think, last year, I believe. So it's kind of this signing kind of potentially leads to a likelihood that Mitch Robinson is going to be headed elsewhere in free agency.
Yeah, we're gonna break down all the latest free agency news as it comes out in our next episode. But we want to continue a little bit with this fantasy football mock draft outlook now. But tune into our next episode. We will be doing a full breakdown of just all the latest free agency news in the NBA. That'll be next week. But now going back, to our fantasy football mock draft, we're gonna go to the next team. This is Ant-Man at Ant-Man225. This is his team. Ant-Man, he first went with Cooper Kupp, then went with CeeDee Lamb, and then back-to-back running backs in Ezekiel Elliott and Antonio Gibson. Then he selected Joe Burrow, then Dallas Goedert to round out. And then Michael Thomas, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Carter, Jamison Williams, and then J.D. McKissick to round out the bench. Ari, what are your first impressions on this team right here?
Yeah, wide receiver. I mean, I like Kupp and Lamb a lot. I don't mind Elliott and Gibson, where you got them. I'm not super confident in Gibson this year, but I know a lot of people aren't either, and so that's why he fell to 4.09. I will say that you got McKissick late, but to me, the handcuff to roster for Gibson is Brian Robinson, the rookie out of Alabama, just because I think if Gibson were to miss time, Robinson's going to be that guy that's going to fill his role on the early downs. McKissick is going to have his role in the passing game. I don't see his role changing much if Gibson was to miss time. So I think Robinson's the guy to get if you have Gibson. Like with the other two teams, I personally am gonna wait on quarterback over Burrow 5.04. But I mean, I get the appeal. Goddard at 6.09 is not bad, but I personally would keep waiting for either Ertz or Komet. I know Ertz went 7.01 here, but in most mocks, he's gonna be going a little bit later than that. Thomas is 7.04. Michael Thomas is really solid value. Obviously, there's a lot of risk with the injury, but I think the injury risk is clearly baked into him falling that far. I like Ayuk to 8.09, so I like those two receiver picks. Michael Carter this late, I don't mind. Williams, I don't mind. Not two players I'm going to be targeting myself, late, but so yeah, the last three picks I'm not a huge fan of, but at the end of the day, rounds 9 and on, like kind of every player to an extent is a kind of a dart throw. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with you there. I like Cooper Kupp and CeeDee Lamb, that 1-2 combination for your wide receivers, and pretty deep as well. With Michael Thomas, depending on his quarterback situation and his health situation, along with Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk was kind of the forgotten shadow in San Francisco after Deebo Samuel emerged as just a top receiver or just top offensive productive player for that San Francisco Niners team. And then rounding out, you have Michael Carter and then Jamison Williams. Obviously, some good depth right there. Jamison Williams could be a big question mark just depending on what how much production Amon-Ra St. Brown is expected to get this year. And then you also have TJ Hawkinson on that Lions team for Jared Goff. So, I'm not going to say crowded, but, that offense is filling up with some young stars. So definitely, but, definitely taking them late, definitely, just for safety things. I agree with you about J.D. McKissick. Pretty much, I don't think he's definitely going to be that lead back right now. Not lead back, but backup handcuff in case. I think Brian Robinson as well is definitely going to be the safer handcuff for Antonio Gibson. And you mentioned Antonio Gibson falling down to the 4th round. And, his production last year definitely took a big tumble in Washington. I feel like that's kind of a reason why, obviously, his injury status played a considerable role to that. So I definitely agree with you there on maybe potentially finding the handcuff for Antonio Gibson. But now we're going to move on to the next team. This is Slayer's team. Slayer, they first went with, of course, Derrick Henry. And then they went back to back to back wide receivers with Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, and DK Metcalf. You get Darren Waller as your tight end, and then Kyler Murray in the 6th round, and then Cordell Patterson, Traylon Burks, Rashad Penny, Russell Gage, and then Hunter Henry to round out the team. Ari, what are your first impressions on this team right here?
Yeah, I mean, I think Henry's a fine pick at 1.05. I'd probably lean Jefferson over him in PPR just for the security upside, but I can't tell if that's a Titans jersey or whatever in your profile picture, so I'm not sure if you're a Titans fan. And then you go Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, DK Metcalf. I'm just kind of trying to see who you could have gotten in these picks. Yeah, I mean, I feel like he kind of did go best player available. Obviously, running back isn't ideal. Having Patterson as your RB2. I like the Penny and Gage picks late in the 9th and 10th rounds. I don't really see much of a point in Hunter Henry in the 11th round. I like the Waller value in round 5, but I'd rather go with another upside running back or receiver in round 11 over Hunter Henry. Yeah, I mean, I feel like he kind of played the board for the most part as well as he could have. Maybe I would have considered Montgomery or Akers in round 3 over Keenan Allen as a safer running back too. But other than that, maybe Gibson in round 4, but I'm not huge on him, like I said. So yeah, I mean, not the best team to me overall, but I see looking at where you went each round that you kind of went best player available, over forcing running back, which is always good. I probably would have tried to stack some more running backs late over like Burks and over Hunter Henry. So I probably would have just looked to add to your running back depth late over like those 2 picks. But other than that, I feel like you kind of did what you could with what the board kind of gave you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all what you had to say, Ari. I definitely see, definitely Cordell Patterson, kind of the outlier right there. Definitely not the strongest running back too right there. Definitely could have potentially drafted, a more solidified, RB2 in that slot earlier, like Antonio Gibson. You mentioned David Montgomery instead of, relying on Cordell Patterson way down in the 7th round. So I definitely agree with you there on all your points right there. But I definitely agree. That sometimes best player available is sometimes a smart shot, but sometimes if you really need to really stack your running backs in a league like this, definitely would be a lot safer to have an RB2 that you draft earlier or in an earlier round instead of relying all the way down to Cordell Patterson to be that lead back. So now we're gonna get into the next team. This is Logan Laser Chick. This is their team. First off, they went with Justin Jefferson and then Alvin Kamara in the 2nd round. Back-to-back wide receiver picks with T. Higgins and Jerry Jeudy, and then Elijah Mitchell out of San Fran in the 5th round. Marquise Brown, then Jalen Hurts, Chase Edmonds, Garrett Wilson, Pat Freiermuth, and then Trey Lance to round out the rest of the roster. Ari, first impressions on this team?
Yeah, I like the Jefferson pick in round 1. Obviously, the biggest concern with Kamara right now is the potential 6-game suspension, which some say could happen this season, some say could happen next season. I mean, if Kamara plays out every game, obviously he's a steal this late, but he fell this late because of that risk. I like the T. Higgins pick. I was talking about earlier, I personally like Sutton over Jeudy, and I like probably A-Rob over Jeudy. So there's probably a few players I would have taken over him in the 4th round. But if you like Jeudy the best in Denver, then I get that appeal. I'm not huge on Mitchell this year, just given the change over the past, I think it's 5-6 years now that they've had a different leading rusher in San Francisco. But that trend's going to break at some point. So maybe Mitchell breaks that trend. And I know you needed a running back there, and we didn't see another running. That was the only running back to go in the 5th round. It looks like. I like the Hurts pick in round 7. I like the Lance pick in round 11. I know some people would say not to take a backup quarterback that early, but I think Lance's upside is worth it. For trade value come midway through the season. I'm not particularly that interested in Garrett Wilson personally this year. Freiermuth's going to be a touchdown-dependent tight end, but you waited, It looks like he went after I took Komet. So, I mean, I like Komet over Freiermuth, but I took him before that. So, I mean, at that point, he's probably the best available tight end at that point. I mean, Edmonds is the lead running back in Miami on paper, but it's a super crowded situation. But, you took Edmonds pretty much mid round 8, so there's no risk at that point. Like with the team before, I probably would have stacked running backs more later because you waited on a position. So maybe over Garrett Wilson. And then I like the Lance pick. Maybe I was taking a running back there just due to how shallow you are running back and how you went about that position.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you right there. Definitely stacking more on running backs right there would have been a better shot right there, especially with how that quick turnaround you mentioned. San Francisco, they have a different leading rusher every season, so there's really no dependence lead back in San Francisco, and they always and usually everyone assumed that it would definitely be Raheem Mostert, but after his many struggles with injuries and that whole Niners locker room or that whole Niners running back room, getting injured, I definitely can see, there's not that much dependency and reliability on any of the San Francisco 49ers running backs right there. But and then obviously the whole Kamara situation, we don't know when the suspension will be, but it is safe to assume that he fell for that reason. So, but I definitely agree with you. Definitely stacking on receivers earlier would have been the better shot for this team right here. We're going to move on real quick here to the next team. This is at Sanshi. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your username again, but this is the team that they drafted. So first they went with Jamar Chase, and then Javonte Williams in the second round, A.J. Brown, then Travis Etienne, and then Lamar Jackson, A.J. Dillon, Tony Pollard, Melvin Gordon, Alan Lazard, Kadarius Toney, and then rounding it off with Irv Smith in the final pick. Ari, looking at this team right now, what stands out to you the most?
Yeah, I actually like the outlook of this team like a lot. I love the first 5 picks with Chase, Javonte Williams, AJ Brown, Travis Etienne, Lamar Jackson. um, yeah, I mean we took in the throne league, we took Javonte Williams, I think 2.08. So I mean I like him here in the mid round 2. And I like that you got Melvin Gordon late in round 8 as kind of insurance. If either of them miss time, there's an immediate clear RB1. AJ Brown, I'm a little bit worried about like kind of inconsistency wise, but I mean at 3.07, he's definitely the best available right here. I love ETN in round 4. 2 upside running backs and AJ Dillon and Tony Pollard round 6 and 7. We talked about Lazard potentially being the wide receiver 1 in Green Bay in round 9. And then Tony upside in round 10, and then Irv Smith, you waited at tight end. I think he's going to be super touchdown dependent as well, kind of between probably Dalvin Cook, Jefferson, Thielen, and potentially Osborne in that offense. But I mean, when you wait that late on tight end, you're going to kind of be stuck with, not an ideal option. But I mean, other than that, I like this team a lot. The build, the kind of the upside and safety at each position. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like this team has a lot more depth to them, and I feel like the upside is definitely there. You mentioned Travis Etienne in the 4. I think that's definitely kind of a steal right there. No one, I mean, we didn't even get to see Travis Etienne touch the field last season because of his ACL tear during training camp, which forced him to miss the whole regular season for Jacksonville. But now we get a
I
full
think it
season.
was Litzfrank, I think.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and then now he gets to link up with this quarterback out of Clemson, Trevor Lawrence, for his second year. Now Travis Etienne's real first year. So now we get to see how that Clemson connection works down in Duval. So I definitely like that. I think this team is definitely well rounded. Obviously, you mentioned AJ Brown, definitely kind of a risk, but at 3.7, I definitely for value wise, you can't really complain for that one. So I definitely like this team as well. I think Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, that 1-2 combo is definitely great to get the handcuff down there for Melvin Gordon, for Javonte Williams as well, depending on who is the established lead back. And obviously all the assumptions that are that Javonte Williams are definitely is definitely going to be the lead back there. I think we skipped one team, Ari. I think we skipped Zach's team. If you want to go back to
I skipped that because it was auto pick. That's
that was
why I
auto.
Zach,
Oh,
if you're still watching or whatever, just let us know in the comments. But I think it was pick 2 and 11. I wasn't gonna do because it said auto pick and that they were on auto pick. So if Zach and Larry, if you guys are here, just let us know and we'll go over it. But
now
otherwise, I think we'll just skip the auto pick.
let's just get into Ari's team real quick here. Ari, I mean, do you want to kind of explain your team here and kind
Yeah.
of what your thought was?
Yeah. So I went Dalvin Cook round 1. Saquon Barkley round 2. I'm a huge proponent of Barkley bouncing back. I've been saying it since last offseason that Barkley would be in the void for me in 2021, coming off ACL tear, and after he was over a year removed from it, heading into 2022, that he would be a target for me. Falling later. Last year he was a first round pick. This year I took him 2.05. I know in some in some mocks he'll fall to like even late round 2, but I wanted to secure him here. Round 3, I was hoping that one of Keenan Allen, T. Higgins, or AJ Brown would fall to me, and then the three of them went 3 picks before me. So I went running back again with David Montgomery at my flex. And then I went Pittman and Moore, who I feel are both relatively safe PPR receivers as my receiver 1, wide receiver 2. I went Kareem Hunt in round 6. I like his balance a lot of he'll have his guaranteed role in the passing game either way. And then if Chubb misses time for whatever reason, he's going to be an RB1. So I like those kind of mix a lot of players who kind of have a guaranteed role with upside. So I like Hunt a lot in that like 6 to 7 round range this year as like a running back 3, running back 4. I went Mooney and Renfro as my wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, round 7 and 8. I secured Madison in round 9 for Dalvin Cook. And then Komet is my favorite tight end late to grab this year in rounds 9 to 10. He's pretty much the number 3 target in that offensive line behind Mooney and then Montgomery. I'm realizing now that I have 3 Bears, which isn't totally ideal, but I'm not against it if I'm getting them at the right value. And then, Mooney is a bench player right now. So totally just commit Montgomery, who I think are both going to be a big part of that offense in my starting lineup. And then Derek Carr, I'm all about as a quarterback late. He gets a Waller fully healthy this year. Obviously, Devontae Adams is going to be huge. And then Renfro stepped up big time last year. In that division, they're going to be passing the ball a whole lot. The Raiders defense still has holes. That's going to be, they're going to have to throw the ball a lot in that division and in that conference. So I love Derek Carr late, if you wait on quarterback.
Yeah, now let's get into my team real quick. So first off, I went with Najee Harris and Nick Chubb. Najee Harris, I feel like he's going to be one of the more lead backs in that, obviously, in that NFC North, who has that breakout speed and breakout power, similar to Nick Chubb. And that's why I selected both of them. I feel like both of them are very powerful running backs who, definitely are ground and pound running backs, definitely wear and tear. They definitely, pound the ground and, just run through your opponents. And then obviously I went a little risky. I went with Josh Allen in the third. I just love the upside for him this year. With Stephon Diggs in that offense, I feel like he is definitely the best quarterback in this draft by far. And I feel like if you're going to take a risk on him, why not take it in the third round on him? Obviously, there's better. Obviously, I should have. I looking back, I would have taken receiver here, but I just feel like in terms of just value wise, I feel like Josh Allen is a third round quarterback. I feel like him being drafted in the third round is not too far fetched.
Deontay is the only one who went between your pick and that pick. So unless you're going to take Deontay, I think you were fine waiting one more round of wide receiver.
Yeah, I was still fine on waiting one more round, but I just feel like if you're going to take value right there, I feel like Josh Allen is definitely that quarterback with that great value right there at 3. And then back to back, I went with Terry McLaurin and then Chris Godwin. Obviously, Chris Godwin's injury is definitely something to note about. But then obviously, Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 1 out of Washington, now has a quarterback. He got his money this offseason, so he doesn't have to play for anything. So that definitely could be a factor. But now he has a quarterback, definitely could be a big ascension for him, being a better better receiver this year, and actually having a quarterback who can throw the ball pretty well. Then I went with TJ Hawkinson as a value tight end right there. He's definitely been a top 5 tight end for most of his career, and I feel like now that he's establishing a connection with Jared Goff, like that could be prevalent. But one of the bigger things is obviously his health. He is definitely not the healthiest tight end. He definitely has some struggles staying on the field. And then obviously that offense is getting very crowded. I mentioned Jameson Williams, obviously now a new out of Alabama. They already still have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have DeAndre Swift and running back in that backfield as well. So, very crowded offense there. But I still feel like TJ Hawkinson is still going to be a top 5 tight end no matter what. And then I went with Devin Singletary and then Juju Smith-Schuster to kind of round out the flex and bench spots. Excuse me. I feel like Juju down in the 8th is a sleeper. I feel like, because obviously the assumption is that Travis Kelce is going to be the number 1 receiver on that Kansas City team now that Tyreek Hill is traded away to Miami. And no one's really talking about, oh, yeah, they signed Juju. But, I feel like, yes, his off-the-field antics are very, very prevalent. But I feel like when he's on the field, he's definitely one of the best receivers in the game right now. I feel like, yes, he, has his off-the-field antics, but when he gets on the field, he can play football to the best of his ability when he's focused. And then finally off, I ran out with Isaiah Spiller. I went with the other TikTok boy, Chase Claypool, and then I finished off with Darrell Henderson in the backfield for the Rams. Right now, I feel like my draft could have been a lot better. I feel like just maybe addressing a wide receiver earlier could have been helpful for me. Also, I was literally looking at Kareem Hunt in round 7, but then of course I already had to pick him right after I picked TJ Hawkinson. So I'm like, oh, that's just fantastic right there. But yeah, for a preliminary, obviously this is just the first round, and I feel like I was okay with it. Obviously, as more headlines come out about potential injuries or whatever, all this may be subject to change. But so far, my team, I wasn't too disappointed with it. But I definitely could have improved on it a little bit. But that's just mock drafts. It's early, it's still in June, but we'll see how we do as we head into July and the dog days of summer. Now we're going to get into the next team. This is TS Fantasy. The team that they selected, they went with Joe Mixon first, and then Aaron Jones second for the pick, and then after that was Deontay Johnson, and then they selected Josh Jacobs and Brandon Cooks back to back, and then they went with Dalton Schultz, and then Russ. Then they finished off the draft with Gabriel Davis, Tyler Lockett, James Robinson, and Ronald Jones. Ari, first outlook of this team. What are your initial thoughts?
I'm just going to say we talked about the suspensions earlier for the Mariners, and it just was announced that J.P. Crawford reduced his to 4 games, and he's starting it tonight, so he'll just serve it for the Oakland series and then be good. I'm not sure if there's any other.
I didn't see any others reduced suspensions. I think obviously those are still TBD with Julio Rodriguez and Jesse Winker still being in the lineup today, so I think they're just kind of waiting out to see if their suspensions are appealed or not. But JP's is reduced, so he's officially out of the lineup until the 4th of July. So that's okay with me, especially since the series is Oakland. I'm not too concerned, but hopefully Julio's is rescinded, and then Jesse Winker's could potentially be reduced. But getting back into fantasy football real quick, Ari, we've talked about this team right here. What are your thoughts about the depth of this team?
Yeah, I love the duo of Mixon and Aaron Jones. Deontay as wide receiver 1 isn't completely I don't mind it completely, but I don't love it. I probably would have went wide receiver over Josh Jacobs between Mclaren or Pittman. I probably would have went Pittman over Jacobs. But I love the value of Cooks late round 5. I think he's one of the most undervalued players pretty much year after year in fantasy football. I don't mind the value of Schultz and Russell Wilson in round 6 and 7. I like the Gabe Davis and Lockett selections rounds 8 and 9. James Robinson, I personally won't have any interest in him this year in redraft, coming off the torn Achilles. Ronald Jones around 11, basically the third last pick in the draft. I don't mind taking a shot on him. Could be the goal line back in the Chiefs offense for Kansas City. So I don't mind that. So overall, pretty solid. I probably would have went wide receiver over Jacobs, but then again, I kind of like Cooks as a wide receiver too, so it kind of worked out in that way. Although in PPR, I would have taken Etienne over Jacobs personally, just with the receiving upside, who went a few picks later. So a couple of changes I would have made personally, but overall, I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think it's pretty solid too. You mentioned Deontay Johnson, tentative wide receiver one, but I feel like definitely Brandon Cooks as a wide receiver two makes up for that, and his upside with Davis Mills, because obviously a lot of people don't really value Brandon Cooks as that top receiver. Obviously now down in Houston, but he's put up plenty 1,000-yard seasons in his careers. So I definitely like this team as well. I like that 1-2 combo as well with Joe Mixon and Aaron Jones in terms of the value. We'll see how Joe Mixon does this coming season, coming off a bounce back season the previous time. So we'll see how that goes. But finally, we're getting to our final team here. This is Sweeney O'Max, or is it Swenny O'Mac? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. This is Swenny O'Mac's team. First, they went with Stephon Diggs, and then down they went with DeAndre Swift, George Kittle, Brees Hall, Mike Williams, Miles Sanders, Drake London, the GOAT Tom Brady, Sky Moore, Naeem Hines, and then finishing off with Kenny Galladay. Ari, what are your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, let's see. So I mean, I don't mind Jake and Swift at that turn. Um, Kittle and Brees Hall at that turn, I probably would have waited on tight end myself. But again, I get the appeal of wanting to secure tight end there. Mike Williams, I know is a player that a lot of people like. We saw he was like a top 5 receiver the first 5 weeks of last season, and then kind of disappeared the rest of the season. Um, I like the Drake London pick. I like the value of Brady. I like the Sky Moore pick. I don't love the Naeem Hines pick. I just don't see a lot of upside in him. I think he could be a decent PPR, maybe RB3, low in RB2. Not someone I'm personally that interested in. Um, I'm fine with the value of Kenny Galladay that late. I was completely off of him in like round 5 last year, but I mean, around 11, with what you hope to be a better Giants offense, it can't really get worse. I mean, late round, the last pick of the draft, basically here. I don't mind that. And then Miles Sanders, he talked about the other day his frustration with fantasy football. I don't put too much stock into that because obviously, you have to get where he's coming from with a lot of people annoying him in his DMs. I'm sure on Twitter and Instagram and all of that. I don't mind taking a shot on him there. I probably would have leaned towards Kareem Hunt over him in PPR with the receiving upside. Um, yeah, thank you for joining, Theo. So overall, not too bad. Like with other teams, I probably would have went otherwise. I probably would have went a different direction in some places, but again, when you're picking at the turn, either whether it's number 1, number 12, you kind of have to reach on some players at some point because you have to wait so long between picks to where they're not going to fall to you. So I mean, if these are your guys, and then get them. That's all. I'm always for, because fantasy, you want to have players that you like, want to root for, obviously. So it's about finding that balance of players that are going to be good, but also players that you want to have. So, not my favorite team, but if you like these players, then by all means.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I do like the Miles Sanders situation. Obviously, I'm a hater of Miles Sanders. I had him last year. Done. I'm done with him. He doesn't like fantasy football. Oh well. He can screw around in Philly and miss the playoffs for all I care for. But obviously you have value with Tom Brady going late. Obviously that's a safe pick right there. Drake London, has the upside to potentially, be a star wide receiver out of Atlanta. But I think maybe that may be 1 to 2 years away, just because Atlanta is in a transition QB period, obviously bringing in Marcus Mariota for a 1-year deal before they look to a draft QB potentially in next year's draft to kind of be the face now of the franchise. So, but yeah, definitely good 1-2 combo there, potentially with Breece Hall and DeAndre Swift, 2 young running backs. The only thing with DeAndre Swift, just injuries with him. You don't really have that dependability. And then same for George Kittle, high at 3. George Kittle definitely very not injury prone, but kind of injury prone. So definitely big risk at 2 and 3. But you mentioned it. Sometimes you're in that 1 or 12 spot. You definitely got to take some risk and reach on a few players just because you're waiting so long in between your next 2 picks. So yeah, sometimes you got to reach, but that's just kind of all part of the fantasy football game here. So this was the first of many fantasy football mock drafts. We'll be doing some more as we get more and more closer to the start of the 2022-2023 regular season. But that's going to be it for this episode. This was a long one, but a lot happened today. But we're going to be doing a complete breakdown of the free agency market as teams sign and we find out potentially where Katie and Kyrie go. No word on them, but we will bring you the latest right there. Just some quick headlines before we go. I saw that Wesley Matthews is going back to the Bucks. We have Javon Carter going back to the Bucks as well. Daniel House is signing a 2-year deal with the Sixers. We also saw that Lou Dort got a big deal. He signed a 5-year, $87.5 million deal to stay in OKC. Batum is returning to the Clippers. And then we also saw Boucher and Thaddeus Young are both returning to Toronto. Ari, out of all those, do any of those stand out to you?
I mean, good for Lou Dort. He definitely deserved that extension. I thought there was a chance that he might leave OKC, but clearly OKC wanted to keep him, part of the core of the rebuilding, position that they're in right now. That's about it. But like you said,
we're going to be doing that on Wednesday of next week. We're going to take, or Tuesday. We're going to take Monday off, obviously, to celebrate the 4th. So happy 4th to all the people out there in advance. But we're going to take that Monday off just to, celebrate. But we will be back on Tuesday for Monday's episode. We're going to be doing a complete breakdown of, just the latest NBA headlines in terms of free agency. We'll also be doing, just a little preview of what's to come for the MLB maybe as we get closer to the All-Star break. And we'll see what's going on with the NFL as we get closer to the beginning of preseason and as we enter training camp. So this has been an episode of AKP Sports Talk. That's Ari. I'm Korea. We will see you guys next week. Have a great weekend and enjoy the 4th. Happy holidays, guys.